So welcome everybody. So it's my turn today to explain a little bit about, I guess, my career journey and those kind of things. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and hopefully you'll see the right thing. So I've called it From the West Coast of Wales to the Bottom of the Sea in Antarctica. And that's me. I'm not genuinely bigger than Antarctica. That's a picture of Antarctica that I'm standing next to. But it's not the place I thought I'd end up, is a kind of polite way of putting it. And there'll be a lot of you kind of at a career stage where you're either undergraduates or finishing something or looking to start something new, where hopefully this will give you an idea that not everything has to have a big grand plan. And even if you do have one, then sometimes it's not going to go that way anyway. So, and that's not a bad thing sometimes, as you hopefully will see with my story. So that's me, the little grinning creature that with really bad mid-80s hair, which Joseph is probably really jealous of, thinking, oh, I wish I could get my hair to do that now. But actually, I won a Welsh swimming medal. That was my relay team that I'm there. And we're in the local paper. That's how cool we were. But the view on the right-hand side of that is looking down onto the village that I grew up in. And as you can see, it's right by the sea, like right by the sea. My mum's house is one of the ones closest to the sea. And I would just basically spend all my spare time down on the beach, mucking around in rock pools and stuff like that. And other than when I was very young, when I wanted to be an elephant when I grew up, after that, it was pretty much I want to do something in rock pools or play on the beach or be a marine biologist, as it later became known in my life. But that was it. There was nothing else I really thought I wanted to be, which is really weird because I just didn't think about doing anything else. And I came from a family, my dad was a doctor, my mum was a nurse. There was a lot of, oh, you're going to be a doctor like your dad. It's like, no, I want to go and play with like shrimps and crabs and things in the rock pool. And I grew up there on the west coast of Wales, sort of about as hard to get to from Cambridge as it is to get to the north of Scotland because the roads are terrible. But, and the train service is even worse. But it is a beautiful part of the world. And I was, as I say, kind of obsessed with the ocean. That's the view from the bit of beach when sunset comes that's at the bottom of my mum's garden. So you can't blame me for thinking that doing something with that would be a good lifestyle choice. And as well as being obsessed with the ocean, I was obsessed with the life you could find, partly because of things like this velvet swimming crab. It's an unexpected little bit of beauty in a kind of sandy, muddy, rocky little beach like that. It was not a special beach. It's just but it's my beach, so it's special to me. But I kind of, by the time I was about 6 or 7, I knew where you would go to find each type of animal, what the zonation was on the beach, without ever having been taught about marine biology, because I was living it. So that was like what I cared about. But whilst I was in school, I went to the local secondary school, did science and art, couldn't decide which one to do. And then when it came to A-levels, I had to make a choice. So I chose science, which is quite good because my best friend, she's a brilliant artist and she's way better than me. And she still didn't manage to make a living from it. So I'm glad that I didn't go down that route because I'd be destitute and penniless by now. But growing up there, I was told, well, there are no real jobs in marine biology. It's, go and do it at university if you want, but this is the careers advisor at school telling me this, but you won't, you can do a law conversion course or something afterwards. And again, I just ignored all of the things that people said. And I thought, I just want to do that. It's fine. And so I went to Liverpool to study, which isn't the furthest distance, but at the time was one of the best marine biology courses in the country. And one of the bits about that made it special was at the time they had a lab that was about 100 years old on the Isle of Man at Port Erin. And so you spent your final year living on this island, studying 30 or 40 of you on your course, doing all your field work, everything, and it was just amazing. It was a really kind of formative experience in terms of, oh, I can go to weird, extreme, cut-off places almost and live there for a year and it's fine. So it was weirdly like going back home to Wales, but still a bigger culture shock because you're on an island and you can't just drive away, or you can't get a bus or a train somewhere. You have to fly or get a ferry if you wanted to get off it. And from there, via a short trip home. So what I've missed out on here is the bit where I finished my degree, went home to Wales and spent a year managing a swimming pool because there were no science jobs available. And then I applied for the most rubbishy advert that BAS had at the time, which was Molluscan Database Manager, which was someone to set up a database of Antarctic marine mollusks so that somebody could do a little bit of analysis on it. And I went to see my old IT teacher back at school and said, oh, they've got a job for database management, but I have no idea how to make databases and things. And she said to me, oh, well, we've got some spare computers in the back room and here's the A-level syllabus for databases. Go away and learn it from that and I'll be here if you need any help. So I literally called in favors and learnt a new skill that would get me a job because it was a marine biology job. It was supposed to be a 3-year job, part-time, but I made the best of that job once I got there and ended up became full-time and open-ended. So jobs like that don't come up very often, but if you do get hold of one that's in an interesting place, then if you make yourself indispensable, then hopefully they find a way of keeping you on. So I started on something that basically didn't really cover the rent in Cambridge, which was a bit annoying, but still. Then I'm going to show you a big jump now, because this map shows I've gone this very small triangle of, you know, Wales to Liverpool, the Isle of Man, and then to Cambridge. So I haven't really gone very far in my life. There's a lot of people who've gone, Pilvy's gone further, you know, Pilvy's gone further in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, it's where work has taken me. So doing a job in marine biology is not the best paid job if you work for a government funded science agency, but the yellow dots are places I'm working with or gone to conferences at or collaborated with and gone and visited people. So I've traveled all over the world with work. The red dots are where I've been for field work. And that, when I started this job, there was no field work involved. I was supposed to sit at a computer and type the names of animals into a database. So don't be put off by something. If you enjoy field work and there's no field work element to it, it doesn't mean that if that lab or organization doesn't, if it does field work, you might get a chance to go with them as well. So, and just to prove I've been there, that's me, the little orange Teletubby in my survival suit and all sorts of things to stand on it. That's a floating ice shelf that I'm stood on, and the ship behind it is the James Clark Ross, which has just come out of service for BAS. And my most recent trip was to the Weddell Sea to try and get to the iceberg A68 where it had come from, to study the seafloor underneath it. And these pictures are just the wildlife that I saw, that I took pictures of when I was there. So just trying to say that it's a privilege, although it's not a holiday, you do get amazing experiences if you're doing polar science and things you just will live with you forever in your memories and things. And there's a very short video here that you're lucky you can't hear the sound of, because it's the sound of wind rushing past the ship, of minke whales chasing the ship. Is it playing all right or is it a bit stilted? So basically they followed the ship that day and were jumping alongside the ship, and they live their whole time in the sea ice, and they're very inquisitive, and they'll just pop up next to you and see what you're up to and then follow you for a while as well. So you get experiences like that you never forget. And I'm supposed to not like the fluffy, cute things. So I'm supposed to be a hardcore seafloor marine biologist liking all the ugly creatures, but actually there's something special about these kind of moments where you really feel it. And it's something that other people might have to pay tens of thousands of pounds to experience, and you're being paid to be there and actually have this kind of experience. But also I'm back on the beach, the place that I loved as a child and the things that I've always studied. So The orangey kind of blob in the middle of this photo is me, and the other blob is Kath Waller, who is a colleague of mine who works in Hull. And we were in Iceland mapping life on the beaches of Iceland, as well as plastics and microplastics on the beaches of Iceland. And those kind of small grants where we just got enough money to travel there, they gave us free accommodation at the marine labs there, and we basically got a chance to see Iceland and write a small project on that. So there's the big, huge thing where ships that cost £25,000 a day to run, but there's also the thing that costs, you know, a couple of grand to do the whole project as well. So it's not all big science. You can write grants that could get any of your experiences could get to go on this kind of grant or field work as well. So, and now if you don't like animals with 8 legs, I've got good news, because the sea spider I'm about to show you has got more than 8 legs, but it's also huge. So if someone doesn't like spiders, look away now. But this is one of the sea spiders. This one's actually a celebrity sea spider because it's now an exhibit in the National Maritime Museum in their Polar World section. And it's a 12-legged Antarctic sea spider at the side of a dinner plate. And don't tell Jamie, my PhD student who gave a talk in the launch day, because this is one of the ones he hasn't been able to sample for DNA and stuff, because I've dried it and sent it to a museum. But I get to study some of the most amazing, freaky looking creatures in the world, things that nobody really even knows what half of them live like, what they eat. This group of animals, the really large pycnogonids or sea spiders, we don't even know how often or how they reproduce. We know how the small ones reproduce, but no one's ever found one of the big ones with eggs. So, but the males do carry the eggs in all the other species of sea spider. And so this little schematic here is just to help you understand why what I study is important. So you've got the top predators and all the cute and fluffy stuff at the top. And there are 20,000 species in total. And about 90 of those are those cute things and the big predatory things and the whales and the seals and the birds and the big fish and that kind of stuff. Then somewhere in the middle, you've got about 700 species of plankton-y rubbish and some small mesopelagic fish. And then down the bottom, you've got about 19,000 species of seafloor animals. And I'm kind of stuck. We have like 20 people working on krill, and there's about 5 of us working on these. So you can see the importance is shifted. But at the bottom of the sea, it does look quite beautiful as well. So that's Antarctic seafloor, and it's got so much color and life that you wouldn't expect it to have. And I'm going to show you another short video, and I hope this one works for you, which is life at the bottom of the sea in Antarctica. So you've got giant sponges up to about 2 meters tall. You've got small corals and soft corals. You've got a sea squirt with a crustacean on it, and in the back a tube worm. You've got a fish living inside a glass sponge that's seeing man-made light or light for the first time at this depth, and it's using it as a way of finally grabbing krill as they float past. We've got an octopus. There's also an ice fish, which has got no red blood cells, but does have antifreeze in its blood. We've got more of the giant sponges with huge brittle stars waving their arms in the water column. And we also have feather stars, or crinoids, and these are some of them actually swimming when they've been disturbed. So it's the most alien looking thing you can think of. They're absolutely brilliant. And then we finish up on a sponge and an anemone garden, and that big sea anemone in the middle of the picture, where we've frozen now with the red dots are on it, is about 3/4 of a meter long. So that's a real polar giant. So a lot of these things grow really big in the cold water, but there's way too much of that to tell you about, but only to say that so much of this, about 10 to 20% of everything we catch at the bottom of the sea, is new to science when we bring it up. And so that means we have the honor of sometimes getting some of the ugliest creatures in the world named after us. So I've got 2 species of sea cucumber named after me, which are to most people hideous animals, but to me, because they're quite special. These ones were named by a couple of Australian colleagues who named them after me because we found them on my first ever expedition. So they're doubly special to me. And at that point, so that you can ask me about anything you want to ask, whether it's any of that nonsense or science communication or minorities in science or just general things about polar science careers and things like that, I'm going to stop talking until you tell me what you want me to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Huw. That was super cool. A lot of ugly and beautiful creatures in there.
Oh, did you have your screen stuck on you?
What? Okay, I'm gonna leave Hugh's comment. It's on, although it's on recording now. But I think that because there's bound to be a lot of good stuff that comes out of the conversation as well, we will keep recording. If you prefer not to be shown on the recording, remember that you can, for example, turn off your video camera off, and that way you wouldn't be shown even if you talk. Or if you prefer to be completely anonymous, just put your questions in the chat. If you send them to me directly, I can read them out loud so you don't have to appear. But if anyone does feel like they want to just go ahead and ask the first question to Huw, you can just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask, how do you recorded all the things down in the benthic in Antarctica? I mean, what did you use? Like which remote operated vehicle?
We use a whole range of things. So depending on where we are and what questions we're trying to answer. So anyone who hasn't worked on marine biology before, there's a whole suite of ways of collecting life or observing life at the bottom of the sea. So we've got everything from cameras, so just passively observing things, right through to small trawls. And I mean really small, like maybe a meter or two across, that we collect very small physical samples so that we can bring them back to museums and things for identification and genetics tests and things like that. So the way that Jamie got most of his samples of his sea spiders is sort of, I think it's the 6 or 7 expeditions I've been to Antarctica on. All the sea spiders from those expeditions were kind of given to him. So we save them all. So if we do collect physical specimens, bringing them up from the depths, because Antarctica is very deep water. So if we do bring them up, they're not going to live very long if we put them back in the water. So instead of wasting anything we have, we preserve everything either frozen or in 98% ethanol, and then bring it back to and disperse it around the world to relevant museums or experts. So it's a combination of everything from underwater robots, underwater cameras, everything to get, if we're working on something like a hydrothermal vent, which is very small and sensitive, so you don't want to stick a net through that, so you send a ROV down. But an ROV can only collect a certain number of things per hour, and if your ship is costing you £25,000 a day just to run the ship, you don't want to do that method to collect everything all the time. So it really depends what questions you're answering, because if you only want the sponges or only want a coral, then you don't use a big net, because then you're going to kill everything else. Whereas if you want to know about the entire community, then you do need to catch the entire community, otherwise you don't. So life sciences should sometimes just be called death sciences, because you're killing a lot more things. And as a vegetarian, there are kind of the moral questions, but when you know that you can't protect something if you don't know it exists, then you have to do a little bit of sampling so that somebody else doesn't go there with a much bigger fishing net than yours and do far more damage than you would for science. So yeah, there's a whole range of equipment. That kind of probably more of an answer than you needed, but yeah.
Thank you.
A good comprehensive answer nonetheless. Yeah, if you aren't too comfortable just unmuting and speaking up, you can also use the raise hand option in reactions, and I can give the question turn to you. Any other questions for now? I have a couple up my sleeve, but I don't want to steal anyone's thunder.
It could be about anything as well. It could be like science communication. It could be social media stuff. It could be what it was like to be on BBC Breakfast News this weekend. And there's all sorts of, yeah, I don't mind what you ask about, honestly, just, yeah. Oh, okay, Dan's got his hand up.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, you mentioned that after your undergraduate, you went straight to Cambridge and you ended up with a PhD.
Oh, I forgot to, yeah, well spotted. I forgot to mention the PhD bit because I got the job and did the PhD part-time on the side. And I did it with the Open University, which BAS is affiliated with. So I didn't have the problem, and this is kind of careers advice to everybody, is that there's a certain sort of way into science you can do with a degree or a master's. And then you hit a wall if you want to be a research scientist. Because if you want to apply for grants and things like that, it's kind of expected that you have a PhD, because a PhD is, whether this is right or wrong, is the measure that's used by people to see that you have done the training to be that kind of higher level thinking and things for yourself, so that if you were given a grant to run, you could probably run it then. So it's more sort of like having done the homework. So although I did my PhD alongside work on the stuff that I was already doing, so those papers would have come out anyway, but they formed my PhD. That makes me more qualified to handle a grant and go further in my career in the eyes of the scientific community. So although I'm no different and the work I'm doing is the same, they like to see it on paper that you have that qualification. So I did my PhD because I needed to, if I wanted to progress in my career. And that's very different to the way other people might do it, where it's an automatic part of a lot of people's career paths if they go into academia. And especially if you want to be a lecturer or something, it's pretty much essential. But if you want to be a lab technician or a scientific diver or somebody who doesn't necessarily drive the science forward, but is part of science, you don't need a PhD for that. But what I wanted to do was answer some of these big questions I had in my head. And the only way to do it was to be able to push my own ideas forward, because let's face it, everybody's got their own ideas. And if you don't push your own ideas forward, nobody else is going to do it for you. So it was well spotted that I didn't mention a very important part of my career journey, because basically once I got to Cambridge, it's been 20 years of random things, which BAS is very good, and the Antarctic is very good at throwing up things like giant icebergs that you have to go and study, or strange phenomena no one's ever seen before, or discovering the first hydrothermal vents in Antarctica and things. You know, once you found something like that, you have to go and find out some more stuff. So it's quite easy to forget that part of it was doing a PhD. So yeah.
A natural part to the journey. Really good question, Dan. Hannah, your turn.
Didn't unmute myself. Hi. I was going to ask, with when you go on sort of research expeditions where you use a big research vessel, do you have a lot of different people who go on that who are part of different projects? And how is that, if so, how is that sort of managed? Like, how does it get managed of who goes off where and does what when?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's actually changing slightly for the UK at the moment. So we have the new vessel coming in. So what I'll talk about now is how it was done before, but it's not necessarily how it's going to be done in the future, because they're deciding that strategy now. But I've been on all sorts of expeditions, but none of them have just been a single type of science done. So my first ever expedition, it was split into 3/3, and there was one type of marine geology going in 1/3 of it, another type of marine geology going on in another 1/3 of it, and then there was the marine biology side of it. And we were going all to the same area to work in, so we were all put onto the ship together, but we'd all requested ship time to go to that place. So it was arranged by, at the time it was BAS ship's logistics people that organized who went where and when. And now with the new ship, things are going to work slightly differently, I think. But also I've been on a German vessel where there were 18 different projects all running on the same ship, competing for time. And if there's, and that's an interesting thing, because if you have, and you always have in Antarctica, either bad weather, lots of sea ice, mechanical problems, or you get all three of them at the same time. So all of these things can happen. And then your days get reduced. And that's where good management of these things happens. So what also happens on a ship is, as well as all these projects thrown in, there will be a senior scientist who will be in charge of everything. And then their own personal style will come into it. So it could be consensus voting with all the heads of the smaller projects having a voice. So it could just be one person takes charge and says how it's going to be. And this is the plan if the weather goes bad. We're going to cut everybody's time by the same percentage, or we're going to prioritize some work because it can't be done again next season. So that's where it gets tricky. We were stuck in the sea ice on the Polarstern, the German vessel, for 3 weeks and couldn't get to where everyone had planned to work because there was too much sea ice. So we had to choose new areas to work in that would suit everybody's science and divide up the remaining time in a fair way. And I was the head of one part, so the seafloor biology bit, I was kind of leading that, and I had a seat at the table. And it was really interesting to see the politics involved. So because I was external, I wasn't under the pressure of having senior people from my own organization putting pressure on to get more time for their projects, for example. So there's all sorts of internal politics and things that come in because it's real people. So it is like being at a real workplace or a real university or any of those kind of things, but at sea. And with the added thing of you never get away from those people either. So the mix of science in one way is brilliant because I get to learn about all sorts of areas of science that I would never see in action. You know, I might be able to read it in a book or a paper, but would never experience it. I've helped with marine mud coring. I've helped with oceanography. I've helped with swath bathymetry, which is picturing the seafloor using echo sounders. I've helped with ROV work. I've done all sorts of things, but I was there to run a fishing net. So, and that's the same with a lot of parts of Antarctica. Someone who goes down to do geology might go and help the meteorologists let off weather balloons, or might go out on the boat with the marine biologists to do seal watching for them whilst they're diving and things. So it's the best bit, because back in Cambridge, we're all, assuming we're back in normal work, we tend to sit in little silos. We go to tea with the people who do our kind of work, and we have lunch with either our neighbors or office mates or whatever, because it's convenient. And then you don't hear about the things, or you don't experience other people's stuff quite as strongly as you do when you're in Antarctica. Because the best thing about a ship is if it's doing one thing, it probably can't do something else at the same time. So you've got the luxury of time to see how other people's stuff works, because when they're working, you're usually on your downtime. So then if you're not going to work for another couple of days, you can say, well, I'm, you know, where do I help? What do you want me to do? What can I lift and carry? And just by being a dog's body for somebody else's science project, you can learn a lot about, you know, if I'm learning about the history, the glacial history of the bay that my animals are coming from, I might find out that they've only been able to live there for 10,000 years because there's been ice there before that. And that's a huge thing for me to learn without having to go and look it up. It's something where I've seen the evidence for it and understand it from the people who discovered it. So, and then when you need to write a paper about something like that, you know that person more than just a name or an email address. So it really helps to do these multidisciplinary things. But the flip side of that is when you're running out of time, who decides that my fishing is more or less important than somebody else's sediment core? And that is where you have to be grown-ups and really understand how to consider other people's feelings and things as well. And I've been chief scientist on a couple of cruises, and planning helps. If you already have spoken to people before you get on the ship about, if we have problems, what are we going to do? Or what can you sacrifice and what can I sacrifice, so that we have that as plan B and plan C and plan D until you get down to like 1 hour left to do any science or something. And everybody just goes, well, it's not worth doing anything at that point. But yeah, planning and working with other people is a huge part of going to Antarctica. And then that's beyond starting with the logistics people and the ships people and everybody else.
Thank you.
So many layers of collaboration. And I think that, well, I'm just gonna slide one question in between here, because you're talking about collaboration, and like one big aspect of that is networking as well. And you've you are kind of, I would say, I would call you a master networker. You've done so much when it comes to you know, big conferences and chairing meetings, discussions. I would like to hear a little bit about kind of how you built that skill for you and how it was maybe in the beginning, and how did you find the courage to start doing it more and more, and then feel confident in that?
It's weird, because when I first arrived at Bath, I've always been quite an outgoing person, and I think that's part of it. It's easier if you're like me and less afraid to come forwards, but I think introverts can do it too. I think it's just a skill you can learn very often. So the main thing I would say is I learned from Dr. Catherine Linzer, who has always been my manager since the day I started at Bath. We started on the same day. We both walked into the building and were sat next to each other in reception. And she said, "Oh, you're Huw, I'm Catherine, I'm your manager." And that's how we met. And we'd never met before, but we went to my first ever international conference, which was in Vienna. And it was all about snails and mollusks and things. It was a total mollusk festival. And she's a world expert on Antarctic marine mollusks. And she was a machine. She was a networking machine. She'd be at the coffee breaks, the tea breaks or whatever, and she'd go, "That's Professor so-and-so. I've never met them. I'm going to go and introduce myself." And bearing in mind that she wasn't long out of her PhD at that point, so wasn't the well-known figure she is today, but she knew the value of, if I'm in the same room as that person and they might be influential and important to me, standing in the corner and worrying that they might hate me isn't going to get you anywhere. But politely introducing yourself and saying, "When you have time, do you mind if we could have a chat?" Not just bulldozing the other person. So there's two extremes. There's hiding or there's being annoying. And somewhere in between is that sweet spot of going, "Hey, really nice to meet you. If you get a chance, can we have a chat?" And back in the day, it was business cards or whatever, but you know, now you can just send them a message through one of the many social networking things, or just email them and say, "We met at the conference." So even if you don't have a chance to follow that up at the conference or when you meet them, they'll remember that person who approached them if you follow it up soon enough afterwards. But beyond that, once you have made a connection, you don't have to make a connection for life. Work with the people who treat you well and are nice to you and respect you and aren't just doing it for their own advantage. And those collaborations will blossom, and they'll introduce you to their friends and their colleagues because you're a nice person to work with as well. People who screw other people over get a certain traction with that, and then it stops because they might get one big impact out of stealing your idea or whatever. But don't work with those people again. Work with the person who helped you come up with the idea, or was willing to give up a bit of their weekend to help you with something, or was willing to come online at 6 o'clock in the morning Australian time when you're coming on at 9 o'clock UK time to discuss an idea. Because those people, if they're putting in the effort as much as you are, and it feels like a 50-50 thing, it won't always feel 50-50. Sometimes you're doing loads for them and other times they're doing loads for you. But if it averages out that it's a mutual benefit, then keep it up. It takes work. It's a bit like any other relationship, that dropping them a little email asking them how they are. I've got a colleague in Australia who sends me a happy St. David's Day message every March the 1st because I'm Welsh, and he must do that with colleagues all around the world for their National Saints Days. And it works because I know that Graham is going to send me a message on March the 1st, and I never forget about him. So if you drop off people's radars and stop, if you only talk to them because you've got something to talk about with work, and then it goes 2 years before you next have to talk to them, they're probably going to be a bit grumpy if the next time you talk to them, you need a favor. So, you know, just make sure you go for a coffee or a beer or whatever works for you with them at a conference, and not just talking work. Ask them about their life and how they're doing and things like that. But being friendly gets you a long way. It really does.
So connecting on a human and professional level.
Yeah.
That's the advice. Sounds really good. Thanks, Huw. I'm going to leave a little bit of silence to allow maybe someone else to ask a question. Doesn't have to be questions, can be comments as well, by the way. So feel free to share too if you have something. Sally, go ahead.
Hi, I mean, you mentioned it just a moment ago, but what was it like being interviewed by the BBC recently for all the Antarctic news that you've been involved in?
It is a good question, because it is something you can never prepare for. It's something that you see people on TV, and then you are the person on TV. And it is, like I said, I'm not scared of talking. I don't really get that nervous if I have to stand up and give a talk and things. And I think that's come from having done it for years for a start, but also even like having done school plays and things as a kid probably helps. And you get a kind of butterflies like 10 seconds before you go in there. The next voice you hear will be the presenter, and you're like, and the BBC ones are particularly weird because the screen is black for you. You don't see the BBC studio or the film they're showing beforehand. And then they go, those pictures in that video were amazing. Tell us about them. And you haven't seen the video because they haven't played it to you. So it's a very weird feeling, but it's also, it's good fun. When you got to a stage in your career where the BBC Breakfast News texts you when you're out for a walk on a Saturday and say, we're running this tomorrow, are you available to come on and talk about it? It's like, I'm not going to say no to that. That's a pretty cool thing. I've done 20 years of working at this thing to the point where somebody goes, oh, you know something, which, you know, if you have imposter syndrome or any of those things, it's almost a cure for that kind of thing when the BBC come knocking and say, we think you're good enough to answer these questions. So it's really nice. It's even better when it's some science that's not just an iceberg has melted and are you sad that an iceberg has melted and did the iceberg melt because of climate change? All questions that the public are probably asking, so need answering. But what I do for a day job is not waiting for icebergs to melt. So you'd kind of wish they'd ask you about the animals on the seafloor and things. But that's another thing you have to learn, is what interests the public isn't necessarily what interests the geeky science people like me. So you have to do both. You have to learn that for different audiences, different things will be important. And penguins will always come up if you're doing Antarctic stuff. Polar bears will always come up if you're doing Arctic stuff. So you've got to be prepared to throw in the answer of, well, how will that iceberg melting have affected the penguins, even if you didn't think it mattered to the penguins at all? And being able to think on your feet, again, is a matter of practice. And if you really hate giving a talk, I've been quite mean to my friend Kath, who sat on the beach with me, because when she was a PhD student, she did it much later in life. She'd been 2 other jobs. She had a degree in architecture, and then she was a medical sales rep person, and then she went on to do a marine biology PhD with Bass. And she hated the idea of public speaking and standing on a stage and giving a talk. And her first ever conference talk was at the end of her PhD. And for about 3 weeks beforehand, we would book out the conference room at lunchtime. And the old Bass conference room used to have a little stage on it. And I'd make her go and stand on the stage. And I'd sit further and further back every time in the rows of chairs and make her start her talk by going, I'm Kath Waller, and I'm a marine biologist, and I'm here to tell you about, and then I'd say, no, louder, and then louder and louder. And then I'd make her jump up and down and say it, or hop on one leg and say it, and just make it as ridiculous as possible, so that when she came to her real conference, standing up and introducing herself was far less horrible than anything I'd made her do. And actually was quite a relief that, you know, everything worked and everything. And she now lectures for a living, but she wouldn't stand on a stage before that. So it's not impossible to learn these skills as well. You don't have to be loud and annoying like me to be able to be loud and annoying like me. You just need to practice. And that's why things like the sessions we've offered where you can give talks are an easy sort of gateway to getting into that without feeling that anyone's judging you or going to pick on you or whatever.
I look forward to the day when you make me
Hop
hop on one leg, because I still, yeah, I found some confidence, and I've also found some confidence thanks to you, but definitely I think that I could do with a little bit more of a Huw guidance.
I think we all can, though. It's all skills that we can keep coming back and refining. So the way I give my presentations now will be totally different to the way I used to do it when I first started giving them. And also when you're doing a different topic or a different audience, when you're giving one to a women's institute, they may not want to hear the same things or in the same presentation style as giving it to a primary school or to a room full of academics. And I'm always amazed at my hairdresser, which sounds ridiculous, but when I go and get my hair cut, and if I'm waiting and he's cutting somebody else's hair, he's like a different person talking to them than he is the person who talks to me, because he molds himself to the people he's talking to. And that's what a really good people person does. So if you can bring a little bit of that where you understand your audience, then that really helps to boost how strong your message comes across. Because if they feel like they're the special people, then they'll be listening more to what you're saying. Whereas if it feels like something very rehearsed, where you've learnt every word and exact order you're going to say everything in, then, but again, that comes with time. You don't want to not have rehearsed for your first one, or you don't want to not have a script for your first one, because you want that to give you confidence to show that if everything goes wrong, you can pick up your script at least. So it's a thing you learn over time.
Indeed. So I'm going to slide another question in, because I think that not everyone might feel comfortable asking you directly, but because you've been such an active LGBTQ ally, well, not ally, well, activist, sorry, I meant to say.
Don't tell my boyfriend I'm an ally.
Indeed, no, I was picking out the wrong words. Like, I mean, obviously that must have impacted your career coming out at some way, or at least if not your career, but you personally, and kind of like the journey that you've had. And I wondered if you would like to share some bits of what that has been like for you.
Yeah, it's actually, for me, not been too bad an experience, which doesn't reflect the same for everybody. And I especially know that, especially people from different backgrounds to me, and people who are more intersectional, so have other things going on in their lives as well, it may not be as easy for them. So I don't want to make out that the world of polar science is the easiest place in the world to come out and things. But Cambridge is a very secure bubble for a start. It's not like living in some other towns and cities. You know, if you hear a racist or sexist remark in Cambridge, it's shocking. Whereas there are other places in the world you can walk down the street and you'll just hear it everywhere. So again, it's an easier place to have done this. And I had some amazing colleagues when I first started working at BAS who accepted who I was straight away. I know that I've had other colleagues who've taken a long time to come out because they've been worried it'll impact their career. I was still amazed to have a career, so I wasn't worried about impacting it, to be honest. It was just, well, you know, if you're putting up with the rest of the annoying things I do, you can also put up with this side of me, which is not, you know, less upsetting than some of the other stuff I do. So yeah, and it's interesting. You hear a few things over the years. You worry about things like going to the Antarctic, especially living on a ship, and not necessarily the kind of living with other scientists, because you've kind of realized by that point that the people you work with are generally okay with everything. But the preconceptions I had about things like the sailors, the mariners on the ship, they look like kind of rejects from Pirates of the Caribbean. They're kind of tattooed up and kind of, you know, they haven't got eye patches, but they're the next thing from that. They look like proper sailors. And you think, right, well, what do I say? Am I going to say anything? Will I tell them anything? And now, after 20 years, you realize how wrong you were to judge them beforehand. So sometimes your self-defense mechanisms are right. But actually, I get nagged about why I haven't got married yet and why I haven't brought my boyfriend onto the ship to meet them and all of these things. And, you know, you get a hug every time you leave the ship. And that is really important to me, that because you live with them for 2 or 3 months. You actually live together, and it's their home you're coming into, because they spend 6 months a year on that ship every year. And so to be accepted into that, and not just, you know, it's not just being tolerated or anything else. It's like they are your friends. It's almost like you're on the ship family, and they all look after each other. And that again is special, but if it was a negative experience, that would make it a lot worse. So there have been people who've been in other situations with other institutes and stuff who've had a negative experience from that. So I'm not saying everyone who goes on a ship to Antarctica is going to have a brilliant time, but my experiences have all been really good and really well looked after. It's harder to know whether long-term it's impacted my career, but there's, you know, I'm also quite vocal about a lot of things, and that probably impacts my career more. You know, Beatrix will tell you that if anyone's moaning at senior management, it's probably me, and it's probably for a lot of things, for lots of different reasons. And sometimes I'm a pain in the bum, but it's okay. It's yeah, it's okay to speak out, but that is probably, in the environment that I work in, the biggest risky thing I do compared to coming out. Whereas there are other people who have a perception that it will be difficult for them and still haven't come out at work. And that's a shame, but I can see why they're in that situation. I just, you know, I'm too lazy. I haven't got the energy required to hide my life. So it's easier just to come out, because it is hugely draining on the people who can't be themselves at work, where they can't talk about their partner and they have to, or they can't say boyfriend, they have to say partner, or they even lie and say wife or girlfriend because they don't want everyone to judge them. And a lot of that could be internalized, or it could be things that colleagues have said in front of them that have made them realize it's not a good environment to do it. But I've been really lucky in terms of that. And although I've heard a few things I haven't liked, I'm also vocal enough to tell people if they say something I don't like at the time. And, you know, they might not like my reply either, so that's fine. So anyway, yeah. Does that answer your question?
I think that definitely answers it. I'd like to still follow up with kind of maybe asking if there was someone who was struggling, how, like, are there strategies that you know of that other people have had help with, kind of just navigating that, or something that, you know, I don't know, comes to mind to you in the first instance, to a person who doesn't have like the same situation or confidence, or there's a real thing that's actually a threat also in the...
I think it's much harder if there's a real thing. I think, you know, there are some colleagues of mine who have come out later in life or still haven't come out at work. And I respect that, because they might not talk about other aspects of their private life at work either. They might see work as just a place you go to work and then you come home and that's it. And in that case, why would you just pick out one bit to tell the world about when you haven't told them you've got a cat, or you haven't told them about the new bedroom you're painting, or any of those? You know, if you're not that kind of person who chats to people, then maybe you just don't do it anyway, and that's fine. There's no reason why everyone has to come out or talk about stuff. If there are real worries about bullying and things like that, there are rules and there are people who can help people. That's the main thing, is that it shouldn't be happening and that situation shouldn't exist. And there are people who will believe you and will help you. But in general, I think if it is more of an internal feeling, then having some positive role models and people like me, hopefully, who are out there, you know, still appearing on the BBC and not hidden in the cupboard of shame just because I'm out or something. It's like, you know, I exist and work isn't, well, they're ashamed of me sometimes, but not for that. And that's the, that's the main thing, is that I think you can't force anybody to have that confidence or belief, but it comes at the right time of your life, you know, when you're ready. And for me, it was early enough on that it hasn't been an issue, but for other people, it might take them a few years, or, you know, but there's, as long as things like the Polar Horizon thing are going on, and we have other things in BAS like the lanyard scheme and things like that, showing people that we are a tolerant and friendly organization, then I think that's all, you know, then it's up to the individual to decide whether they believe that and want to trust in that environment. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I've asked too many questions now. I'll give some space for others.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to ask, because last meeting you mentioned something regarding to give us some tips on how to make a potential successful application for any role, or polar science and eventually advanced?
Yeah, yeah. And you remembered. So I would say there are a whole load of mistakes that people make when they're applying for jobs. That I'm not saying any of you have done these, but I know that I've done them in the past. And when I read CVs or applications, and Joseph will tell you I'll pick up on this because he gets me to read things. Read the question. Are you answering what they're asking for? Before you even say, are you qualified? Are you actually answering the right question? If I'm asking you about your essential skills for this job, somewhere in the job advert, it will say essential skills. If you then tell me that you're a Cornish surf champion 2012, and it's about IT job or something, then you're not answering the question. You're just filling in boxes. And I think it's much more important that instead of putting just something for the sake of it, that you give me the information I've asked for in a really clear way. And the reality of people doing what's called a sift, and it's something, if you haven't employed people before, you won't know what this is, but it is like literally like sieving flour or whatever to catch the lumps, but in this case, the lumps are the good ones. So a sift is, how do we get rid of 90% of these candidates to pick the top ones? And you make my life much easier if I've asked you for something and you've put it clearly and plainly and easy to find in your answer, in the right box, in the right space. So all the creative bits and the impressive bits you can do are great. But if you haven't given me the right information in the right place, I can't tick the right box that says your CV goes on to the next stage. So as sad as it is, you might be missing out because you want to tell me something in that box that I haven't asked for. So therefore, I can't find that you have excellent Word and Excel skills that are required for the job. So anyone who doesn't have the requirements goes in the reject thing, even though you've written that CV or that application in Word and you've done some of the tables in Excel, you still haven't told me you can use them. So if it says, don't assume any knowledge. If it says, can you do this? You have to say, yes, I can do it. And I can do it to this level. I'm excellent, or I'm proficient, or I've got 10 years experience. You know, those kind of things make a difference because if the job I'm asking you to do is to do the job that I started with of entering data into a computer, someone who can't fill the right box in your job application probably can't be trusted to fill the right boxes in the database either. So also think about what you're applying for. This blanket reply, I'm going to put in the same covering letter to every job, or I'm going to put in the same everything. It may be 5 or 10 minutes extra work to retweak those bits, but making something a bit more bespoke, using the right names and making sure, checking if they're professor or doctor or Mr. or Mrs. or Miss or whatever people use. You can look up their personal website if you're addressing them. Those kind of things do make a difference. It's nice when people call me professor, but it's clear they've never looked at my web profile because I'm not professor on there. So, those things, and yeah, it's important. Before you do anything else, make sure you're answering the right questions in the right boxes and you're giving the information that the job criteria are asking for, because you can't go and be considered further on. And beyond that, give a little bit of personality. If you look at CVs, ask to look at each other's, see who's got an interesting looking one, who's done something nice without filling it with too many pictures or infographics and things like that. And there are other people like B interviews people for jobs and things as well. And I'm sure she can give lots of other opinions on what people should do. But I think basically, if you make it easier for us to find out the right facts and information, then it automatically boosts you. Too much clutter, too many words, the wrong order of things, telling me about your cat, all of those things might be important to you, but have them in a section at the bottom of your CV that's at the end, the bits that nobody cares about but you can go at the end. But the qualifications, the address, the phone number, do you have a driving license? All of these things, if they're important to the job, put them at the top, nice and clear with spaces around them so I can see them. And yeah, that's a good start. And then beyond that, tailor it to the application. Read the words, the description of the job, and make sure you are doing something that sounds like you care about that job. Because if it's a blanket, here's my general application for your general job, fill in gaps here, then how many of them are you sending out a week? And do you really care about the job I'm advertising? Whereas just a little bit about your lifelong ambition to go to South Georgia, or your how much you really enjoy working on ships or working with databases and solving problems or whatever, all of those things will help you. And for anyone who's not a straight white male, try and think a little bit like a straight white male, because statistically they will apply for more jobs and jobs that they're not qualified for. And they will get them some of the time. So don't write yourself off before you start. If it'll take you half an hour to fill in a job application and you might spend half an hour watching some crappy soap opera or something, if that was your dream job, it would be worth spending that extra half an hour to fill in that stuff and give it a go. Because even if you don't get the job that one, it might lead you to them knowing about you and offering you something else later on, or just networking with you at some point. So that's enough ranting about that, because we could do a whole hour on job applications and things. But if I'm looking for information, I want to be able to find it within 15 seconds. I'm not talking like make it easy for the 5th time I read your CV. I need to see Microsoft Word if I've asked for Microsoft Word, and I need it to be clear. You know, that's how basic these things are.
And I think that we should do a session. Maybe we could do like a group session on like dividing people into subgroups and writing stuff together for real applications that we find online. I think that would be a really good thing to do together.
Yeah, and even just reading the job adverts, because there's a lot of BAS job adverts, there's a few out at the moment, and they'll have essential criteria and desirable criteria, and trying to get your head around the fact that those are the order that you should be thinking about them. These are the really important ones. The desirable ones are the next thing you think about. You give them less space, you fully explain your essentials, and then if there's something else, you know, stick it in at the end if you've got space.
Thank you. I think I got 2 more questions if I can ask very briefly. Does BAS follow, I mean, the recruitment team, does follow like, or requires a CV layout specific? For example, like, I don't know if there is one for the UK. For example, there is the Europass in Europe.
There isn't a set template for CVs, but there is a set application form for a lot of the jobs. So you will download an application form, or I don't know, it's not online yet, is it? It's still download a form, isn't it?
I haven't actually ever done it that way around. I can't remember, but I thought it was online.
Oh, it may well be, yeah. And then you
I think
upload.
Both exist. Both exist. Yeah, for sure. There's an online platform where you can do it, or you can do it with just a Word doc. But Matteo, also to add to that, maybe if I may, kind of wherever you're going, it's good to ask a question about like from someone who's either from that organization or culturally from within kind of where you're applying for, because in Finland it's still like really common to have actually pictures on CVs and stuff, and that's what I was used to. And then when I was first applying for the job at BAS, I just showed my CV to someone, and it was a UK friend, and they were like, "What's your picture doing there? Like, you can't have that." And I was like, what? So, and they like really helped me with things like that. And probably that's kind of standard, a little bit more standard now everywhere. But it's just like small things like that, you know, it might be just culturally a different context, and you might be asked for something else. So good to try to reach out to someone who might have the experience from wherever you're trying to apply.
Thanks a lot.
Cool. Any other questions for Huw? And by this point, you know, because we actually have like the last half hour for discussion groups, kind of what we had said. So we just like, we're not too many people to actually be able to have a conversation amongst us here as well. So if there's something that you know, a question that is asked, it doesn't have to be for Huw. We can all kind of pitch into the same thing and follow up on that.
Yeah, maybe we'll stop the recording and then
Yeah,
people can
let's
talk about
do
whatever they want.
All right, so let me stop the recording for today.